All right, welcome to an episode of Talking Ball with Pat Leonard live here on Thursday, August 7th. Had to think about what day it was there. Thursday, Friday. It's deep into camp. We're in day 11, 12, 13. The mind's a mush. The Giants are getting ready for their preseason opener against the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, New York. That brings a lot of excitement for Giants fans here and NFL fans. Josh Allen, unfortunately, not playing in this one. So we don't get to see the reigning MVP and the one of the best players in the NFL, MVP contender this year again, take the field against his former coach and coordinator, Brian Daboll. But the Bills will be playing most of their starters outside of Allen, which obviously leads you logically to think, well, I see the Bengals playing Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I see the Buffalo Bills playing most of their starters. The Giants probably are too, right? Well, as we sit here now, coming off the practice field after a lighter practice on Thursday, much lighter than a heavier one on Wednesday, this has the feel of Brian Daboll not playing a lot of key players, of Brian Daboll and the Giants holding out a lot of the projected starters and A-listers that they intend to count on once the regular season arrives. We'll see if that's the right tactic. We'll see if, in fact, that is what comes to pass. But certainly looking on the field and seeing the likes of Brian Burns and Malik Neighbors not on the field at all, nursing injuries or managing injuries, Darius Slayton and Cam Scatterbu on the side, Evan Neal, the guard who is supposed to be in a position battle for right guard, on the side. What this is going to lead to, and in this episode, what we're going to talk about are the emphases that the Giants need to have in this game. What do the Giants need to get out of this preseason opener? What should their goal be to walk away with knowledge of what key factors or variables of their roster? What can they learn that will benefit them the most? And I think the primary concern and priority for this game for the Giants should be to keep the kid healthy, to keep Jackson Dart upright, because yes, it's on him to show what he's made of, to show what he's got. He said, I'm not scared. The bright lights aren't too bright for him. No bright light is too bright for him. And really, I think we're going to see more from Jackson Dart even in the game than we've seen in practices. He has the reputation as a gamer, a guy who gravitates to the pressure and the spotlight and rises to the occasion rather than the other way around. So, I'm interested certainly in evaluating Dart in that sense. But I think it's on the Giants, it's on Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka, the Giants as a whole, to figure out a way to get a quarterback like Dart important reps and constructive reps, and not the kind of reps that are going to have him running for his life, not able to stand in the pocket and throw because they're not protecting him well enough, filled with penalties and putting him behind the sticks too often so that he's dropping back and passing on 2nd and 18. And then, the other team is able to pin their ears back, and now he's handling things that you don't want him handling in his first start. Certainly, Dart could benefit from any scenario, and as he said himself, he's not intimidated by any of it. But with Andrew Thomas still on the side, and with James Hudson, thankfully back at practice after his injury on Wednesday, so that was good to see, a sigh of relief, hopefully there. But is Hudson even going to play? And if he does, or plays a little bit or does not, who is Jackson Dart playing behind in this game? The tackles behind Thomas, Hudson, and Illuminor are Josh Azudu, Stone Forsythe, and the rookie out of Purdue, Marcus Bowe. So right now, yes, I want to evaluate Dart, but the Giants' number one priority to me has to be to keep Dart upright and to run a clean enough and safe enough and secure enough system and offense so that they can get him to the next game. They can help him develop. They can get Jackson Dart to a point where going into joint practices against the Jets, he feels like he's building something and not that he was taken to the woodshed and has to go back and regroup all on his own. And don't forget this, guys, because this is going to be a weekly and monthly conversation and comparison, especially on a weekend like this. You have Shedeur Sanders starting a game for the Cleveland Browns because of what's going on in their quarterback room with injuries and the depth chart and Flacco being a veteran. And then you have Jackson Dart likely playing ample football for the Giants. It's only going to be one weekend. It's only going to be preseason, but it's certainly going to invite plenty of comparisons and plenty of intrigue to evaluate how both those young men can handle themselves in these moments and how they project to their next start and appearance. Because obviously, given the way the Giants' path wound to Jackson Dart, it went right through Boulder, Colorado, and Shedeur Sanders before getting there. In fact, there were a lot of people who would have rather stayed and ended up in Boulder, Colorado, but the Giants and their decision makers end up coming to the decision that Jackson Dart is their man. And now he has the first step to validate that trade up into the back half of the first round. Eager to see him play, eager to see Abdul Carter play as well. But that conversation early about Jackson Dart is the hook of this episode, brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. You see it over my shoulder right here. Jared is our good friend and a diehard Giants fan from Houston, and this is his company, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. It's at Hooks Rub on IG. He's a Giants fan originally from Houston. Whether you're home gating or hosting the Giants crew in the lot, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices gives your grill serious flavor with their bold seasoning lineup. All natural, no junk, big Texas barbecue flavor to keep fans coming back for seconds. Whether it's smoked wings, cheesy nachos, flat top burgers, ribs, brisket sandwiches, you name it, all dusted with Hooks signature rubs. You can see on the bottom of your screen there, it's hooksrub.com, and the code you're going to use is TalkinBall, and that's going to get you 15% off at hooksrub.com. It's got great merch as well as great product. You can see the smoking sweetness flavor over my shoulder, an award-winning flavor and their staple. You got to start there. Also grateful to my bookie, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and Sal Loretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey. Thank you to all of our sponsors and the support they provide. You can see my bookie, Boom Chaga, and Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. There's codes for all of them on a banner scrolling across the screen. If you look at that ticker, write them down, take that information down, support our sponsors. We really appreciate it. You can support our chat here directly by purchasing a super chat or super sticker. If you do, that will elevate your comment or question to the top of the chat. Thanks for all your support. Thanks to everyone for being here. We start with G-Men. He says, Pat, what's going on, my man? What have your sources told you about if the starters will play on Saturday? I think you're going to see a handful, but many guys sitting out. I do believe, just based on the numbers too, there's a certain element of guys who are going to be regular contributors who have to play in order to fill it out. And definitely look to the rookies. So Jackson Dart, Abdul Carter, even a guy like Darius Alexander, who is not a quote unquote starter, but projects to play a lot for this team once the regular season arrives in the interior of the defensive line. All three of those rookies, despite being projected either starters or primary contributors, you expect all of them to play. So Abdul Carter, obviously, this goes to our second priority of the game, and that is to unleash Abdul and to show the world and really your own team some promise and a reason to believe in more than just adding pieces and building a foundation, because Abdul Carter so far has proven extremely difficult for his teammates to handle. It's been a little quieter lately, even though he did have a sack 2 days ago or yesterday. But he even said, eventually you go up against your teammates and the same guys every day. They start to learn your moves a little bit. It's good to be able to just go against somebody else. I did ask him if he was disappointed Josh Allen wasn't playing. He said, I don't care who plays. So he's keeping it PC right now. But I think everyone is going to be ecstatic to watch him kind of pin his ears back. And what you want to see from him is, of course, the tantalizing ability and that reinforcement of what you have in that number 3 overall pick. But also, to me, G-Men, what you want to see about Abdul Carter there is you want to see a guy who is just as focused on and efficient at stopping the run as he is going after the quarterback. Going after the quarterback is how he's going to make his mark this year, no doubt about it. But if he can stop the run, set the edge, play with strength in the running game, not get pushed around and folded into, be able to think well on his feet and create good leverage against certain schemes and anticipate what schemes are coming in certain situations. All of that is difficult, especially for a rookie. That's a lot of the learning part of the game, is the mental part and understanding that on this play, they blocked you one way. And then the next play, it looks like they're doing the same exact thing to you, but it's a misdirection. You can see Carter in certain practices fall victim to things like that. He's not the only one, obviously, but that's what I'm looking for too with Abdul Carter, is to make that boom impact that we talk about consistently every day at Giants practice. And to me, I would love to see him get a couple sacks, couple QB pressures, and just look as ferocious as he has throughout camp. But the thing that I would really love to see if I were the Giants internally is him playing the run efficiently too, because there already isn't much reason to take him off the field. But if he can defend the run and proves that he is adept at that, then, I mean, good luck pulling him off of the field come Sundays in the fall. That boom impact, hopefully, that we see Abdul Carter make, that's brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can put it in your coffee, tea, or water. I put it in my coffee every morning. They now make cold teas, too. Boom Chaga makes the cold teas. That's great now for these hot, humid summer months. The flavors like Sweet Dreams, Rise and Shine, Midday Boost, all delicious. Chaga has the ability to reduce inflammation, improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants, or lower cholesterol even. Fuel your body with nature's best and feel the difference. BoomChaga.com is the site. As you see, Talkin' Ball 25 is the code. Go to the subscribe and save option there. Use the code, and then you can cancel the subscription. It's just a good way to activate it. G-Man says, also, what have your sources said about Evan Neal being on the sideline today? Is there anything to be worried about? This is his last chance. Well, definitely indicates that he's not going to play in this game, because during the period he was working on the side, G-Men, like prior to that, he was a part of, limited individual things that the team was doing by position group. But then when the offensive line went with the quarterbacks to start installing calls, protections, things like that, in a walkthrough format, right? They were doing no play running, no blocking, nothing. Evan Neal wasn't even standing with the group watching, not let alone not participating. He was pulled out of that group completely at that point. So this isn't even when they were on the field practicing and installing. This is simply walking through. He wasn't even a part of that. He was on the side with the trainer, doing work and doing a lot of kind of lateral movement. As a big man with a history of foot/ankle or ankle issues, I should say, obviously a huge concern. I mean, G-Man, there was a point in Evan Neal's career, obviously, where there was a misdiagnosis of his ankle that cost him. So that's in the back of your mind. But I would say, trusting at the moment that everything is what it looks like, the fact that he's on the field doing those sets in that way tells you that at the moment they don't consider it something serious, because if it was, he wouldn't even be out there. And you wouldn't have a big guy like that on his feet like that. Now, like I said, things have been done incorrectly with Evan Neal before. So that's the asterisk there. But my feeling is that he'll have to be held out of this game, but that this will be with an eye on hopefully getting him back for joint practices with the Jets. But if not, at the very least, to have him able to play against the Jets, because in that game a week from this Bills game, you hit it right on the head. This is his last chance. And, strangely enough, the Giants' two position battles, cornerback 2 and right guard at the moment, they've practically already been settled just by injury, right? Evan Neal sidelined, Greg Van Roten in, Cordell Flott's been out longer, Deonte Banks in, and, you always want it to be merit-based. I do think, though, Van Roten and Banks also are the two better players. Not saying that they're going to solve everything that were the issues last year, but Evan Neal, frankly, was not winning the competition prior to this. But you're right. Like, an injury is the last thing you want. You want to see him, especially in his first camp, making this position switch, at least put his best foot on the field and forward in order to make an argument that you can use him and that he could help you dominate in the running game, especially. Hey, Barb, great to see you. Barb says she can't wait for Saturday. Me too. Jay Farries is all about hooks, rubs, and spices. Me too. Me too, Jay Farries. Joe says, Pat, did Wilson throw more interceptions? 5 in 10 days, not good. He did. Today was not a real practice. Today was a total. Today was a total. Sorry, somebody's spamming us at the moment. Just getting rid of this. Let's see. Yeah, so today was install. So it was like practice for both the offensive players catching and then the defensive players, batting down passes, picking the ball off. There were no true plays back and forth to chart in that sense. So not a practice to chart for, taking care of the ball or not. But you're absolutely right. He does need to take better care of the ball. It hasn't been good enough. And really Russell Wilson in camp so far has been exactly as advertised. And I mean, as advertised by the people who know football and not by the hype around him and what he supposedly is going to do for the Giants. He has some positive traits that could help the Giants and get down the field and hopefully get in the end zone more and things like that. But he also has limitations. He makes mistakes. He has made critical mistakes. And also with the offensive line, whether he has the mobility to escape what's possibly coming if they can't protect him well enough, that's a huge question mark. So I would like to see the starters play. I think, as I intimated or said at the beginning, I think when the Super Bowl contending Bills are playing most of their starters and the Giants, who went 3-14, likely aren't, that has a strange look to it, no doubt about it. But you look at the Giants, what is it? Again, injury issues, right? It always feels like the Giants are dealing with a lot of injuries at this time of year. And so you can understand maybe the logic behind it if that's the route that they go, leaving these guys on the sideline. But absolutely, to your point, these Giants need all the practice and help and reps that they can get in order to try to be their best for weeks 1 and 2 against the Cowboys, or the Commanders in week 1 and the Cowboys in week 2. By the way, hopefully you guys were already able to check them out. If not, we have 2 new Talking Ball episodes up on the YouTube channel, PL on NFL. One is with JP Finley. He is a Washington Commanders expert, works for NBC4 in Washington, and also 106.7 The Fan on the B. Mitch and Finley show. I'm a fairly regular guest on there. They do an amazing show down there. And obviously, hope springs eternal, and lots of excitement and juice with the Commanders in Washington right now. But, of course, there's that Terry McLaurin situation, that nagging contract situation. He already requested a trade. Where is it going to go? So JP joined me from camp down in Ashburn, Virginia. He joined me in between practices right before actually they went up to joint practices against the Patriots in Foxborough. And we downloaded on everything about the Commanders that you need to know, thinking ahead as we have about that week 1 matchup, because really if the Giants don't get at least one of those first 2, it's going to be tough sledding. Also, some opponent news: Rashawn Slater out for the year, the left tackle for the LA Chargers, the Giants' week 4 opponent. So also a noteworthy development for upcoming Giants opponent early in the regular season. But check out those episodes. We have JP Finley in one episode doing a pre-scout of the Commanders and telling us about Terry McLaurin's situation. And then Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News joined me to download on everything Micah Parsons. Where does that stand? Could he actually miss game checks? And both JP and Calvin told me about standouts at the Commanders and Cowboys camps. Who looks good? What are the question marks? What are they doing well? Calvin even gives you a detailed review of their joint practice against the LA Rams in Cali. So a lot of information about Giants opponents, which also, of course, colors in a little bit more about the division, the conference, and the league. So I really think you'll enjoy those episodes. So go check them out when you have a minute. And as I always say, please hit the like button while you are live here, when you're on those videos, and hit the subscribe button as well. Tell your friends, Giants fans, NFL fans, whatever it is that we are live here and we are cooking on Talking Ball with Pat Leonard here on the YouTube channel, PL on NFL. I am the Giants beat writer and the NFL columnist for the New York Daily News, going into my 10th season covering NFL and Giants. Wow. 10 years. Big year. Kyle, what's going on? He says, if you had to make an educated guess, what is one last move the Giants do before week 1? Well, they definitely, there's always the cut day and then some of the waiver claims. I think by that point, you may be looking at needing to add some corners, depending on what the injury situations are here. But right now, behind a Debo and Banks, Cordell Flott's on the side. Trey Hawkins wasn't on the field today. Art Green, who's had a good offseason, hasn't been on the field the last 2 days. Corey Black, a rookie, on the side. Just a lot of corners down right now. So I could see them making depth additions at that position. So that's one. The interior D-line concerns me. I'm not sure the Giants are going to make a move there, but it still concerns me. I think they're hoping, it feels like they're hoping that Alexander is going to really step up as the 3rd-round pick there. Haven't seen it yet, but again, the guy needs to just keep playing ball. So, that's another player to watch here in the game against the Bills. Receiver, Gabe Davis continues to be somebody that I am looking at, that I'm watching, that I'm thinking about. I think that receiver position there's a lot of names you think of that could fill the gaps and step up, but there's no one right now that you can circle and say, I know this guy is going to be the trusty number 3 that teams have to deal with and that, we can count on. And I'm not saying, Hyatt's not going to contribute and Wandale's not going to contribute, things like that. But I do think that they still need more weapons. You have Scattaboo on the shelf right now as well, a guy who looked like he was going to factor more into the passing and running game. So definitely a weapon in that regard too. Barb says she's looking forward to see Bo on the field, the rookie tackle, for sure. Bo will, what he looks like is that he could be a good football player if he puts on a little bit more mass and gets a little stronger. He just looks like a guy who, I am not an O-line technique expert. Like I couldn't coach an NFL offensive line, but I've watched enough good ones and bad ones to feel like I can say Marcus Bo looks like he has pretty good technique, but it looks like his physical strength needs a lot of work. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he handles preseason. I'm more interested in Darius Alexander though than even Bo, Barb. I mean, you're absolutely right. Tackle depth. If Bo suddenly turns out he can hold his own, wow, that's huge, right? Darius Alexander is even somebody I'm watching even more closely and that I'm even more fascinated by right off the bat here, though, because it really feels like they're leaning on him hard to help to create a solution to that interior D line and that run defense. Again, another position on the roster where there's a lot of names you're familiar with, but not a lot that you would say, oh, if this guy has to play as the starter next to Dexter on Sunday, I know we're going to stop the run, right? So they need him to be that. They're counting on him to be that. I think it's a lot to put on his shoulders. Can he and Roy Robertson Harris in combination, along with Nacho and let's say Chapman as part of depth pieces, are those guys and Carter as well kind of factoring in and rotating in? Is that enough to plug the hole up front, to stop those interior runs, to provide enough resistance that it forces teams into 3rd and longs and passing situations? That is something I'm really, really watching. Brotsman says, I have a very bad feeling we still haven't corrected the ongoing O-line problem. Yeah, no, I definitely think, and I said this at the beginning, I think that, protecting Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito in this game, critical for them to be able to allow these guys, especially Dart, to operate. My educated guess at the moment is Jameis Winston starts the game and then Jackson Dart comes in after that. But, we will see. I mean, everybody took reps today in that install and in that period, but it really doesn't feel like the starters or a lot of key starters are playing. So it'd be interesting to see. I wouldn't expect Dexter to play for sure. He hasn't really played a full practice workload all camp. All right, let's see. GC, but yeah, Broadsman, to your point, Dart. So before we get to the next comment there from GCN, which is an interesting one too. So Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston, it just bears repeating. You want to be able to operate a competent offense and then give them a fair shot at putting their best on the field. That doesn't mean every play needs to be perfect. You do want to see them be able to improvise and Dart to use his legs and move around. But I did mention to Brian Daboll that it felt like Dart holds the ball at times a significant amount. And that, on the snaps that don't go as well, this is talking about camp practices. And Daboll kind of, batted it back and kind of argued with it. But the bottom line is, yes, he's right that holding the ball to extend plays is something that Jackson Dart did well at Ole Miss. And, it can help you unlock bigger plays down the field. But there's a lot of risk with it. It's also the timing and the sped up game of the NFL. You have to remember that holding the ball in the pocket in the NFL, much different, especially if your feet aren't moving yet. But you want those feet steady to deliver the pass when you're still in the pocket and be able to hit guys in stride and make those plays. And you only want to bail out at the last minute. You don't want to bail out too soon. So I'm just curious how Dart is going to handle that with his internal clock. And I would just like the Giants offensive line. I think it's imperative the Giants offensive line gives Dart a safer enough situation to operate and learn those things without just running for his life. Let's see. GCN says, Pat, the Colts look terrible. Richardson was sacked and hurt his finger. Jones had to replace him. Special teams was terrible. Kickoff, TD, long punt return, and another long kickoff return. I saw that their special teams are getting run. That's rough. That is the one wild card about them is Steichen. There's still a lot of questions about him as a head coach. Can he get his hands around the whole thing there? It was really pathetic at the end of last season. Yeah, this is what I've told you guys since Daniel signed there, or since he was considering signing there, that he's going to be their starter. Richardson is not it. He's not a very good quarterback. And as you just pointed out, he's brittle. He's always getting hurt. Brotsman, I know, decade-long problem at O-line that they can't address correctly. He says, cut Neal already. That is a fascinating question. What do they do if he loses this guard spot? Do you retain him as the first backup guard, or do you just cut ties? Is it over and you don't want to deal with it anymore, and you'd rather have, Jake Kubas? That I'm really interested about that. I think the way that the Giants operate, him being their first round pick, I think they always want to hold on till the last minute and hope that they can turn it around and validate their selection and evaluation in the first place. But it will be interesting to see their decision on Neal if he does fall off here. Yeah, so Joe, quick updates a little further on those injuries. Thomas still looks like he's I think the earliest you'd see him, like I said, on Monday, I feel the same exact way. If we see him on the field doing individuals next week, not practicing against the Jets, but just doing individuals and ramping up to participation the Patriots week, and then maybe getting some game action in that preseason finale, I think that's the best you would hope for at this moment. It's just interesting to see what's going to happen, because the stuff he keeps doing on the side is very light. It's very ginger. He moves softly and carefully. You do see stutter stepping, and he's planning, and he's jogging at times and pushing it a little bit, but it's not a lot. If you watched it yourself up close, you would say he doesn't look close to coming back. At sooner or later, though, obviously you just have to put a guy in the position of having to deal with a defensive lineman and what they're bringing to him and the twists and turns and having to plan and really stay strong on it. Right. So, but I'll just say it doesn't look great. What I mean by it doesn't look great is I've been told this whole time that Andrew would be ready for week one. Joe Shane couched it at that press conference. I still think Andrew's going to be ready for the week 1 game, but every day makes me doubt it more, right? Like I said, if you see him doing some football things Jets week, you don't expect him to be a part of the joint practices for sure, because those would be his first practices. So you're not just going to put him in against Jets linemen to start. But if you can see him on the side doing individual stuff next week, and then ramping up to full practice participation Patriots week and some game participation that week, then maybe you can feel better about it. Otherwise, that starts to make me nervous, because then you're talking about, is he coming back Patriots week and, maybe not getting preseason game action, and then ramping up with maybe at one heavy practice the first Wednesday of week 1, and then that's it, right? They're not out of time yet for it to be making you nervous, but it's getting there if he doesn't start doing something meaningful Jets week. Hudson, Brian Daboll wouldn't say anything, and I didn't get to the bottom of it, but he was back at practice. And like I said, it was a lighter practice, but he was moving fine and was a part of everything. So that's good to see. Hopefully nothing bad there. Neal, we just talked about. I think, I would expect them trying to ramp him back up for something in Jets week. He was out here doing a good amount for a guy who was banged up, more than maybe you would expect, having done something the day before. And then Malik Neighbors, I don't know, man. This is a nagging concern. He wasn't on the field at all. Didn't see him at all today. There was no reason he couldn't have been out there doing something, but he wasn't. Neither was Brian Burns. I saw Burns walk out on the field late. But this toe is going to be something we monitor for a while, guys, unfortunately. All right. Okay, let's see. J-Fed says Colts scored a touchdown, 21-16 now. Daniel Jones, is he still in? I don't have it on down here. Let's see. GCN says, Pat, Mike Florio mentioned you yesterday. The QB ordered Dart third. He mentioned how you said in practice he is number 2. Florio thinks Dart should start. Sims said Wilson starting keeps Dart healthy with a bad O-line. Yeah, there's no good answer here. I think I would argue Dart should start. If I felt like Jackson was dominating practices and clearly the best quarterback on the field, I would say it and I would call for that. He hasn't done that yet. He's made some good plays, but he hasn't grabbed a job and made me, at the beginning of camp, it was, hey, this should be a competition. No one has. The only person who really is making it a competition right now is Jameis, if it was a competition. But Jameis isn't being given a chance to win the starting job. But I promise you, I know he can throw some picks and turn the ball over, but Jameis is slinging it. I mean, all right, let's see. Lots and lots of hype. The Giants linebacker said Wilson was a top QB. Like I said, we have to see it. Hasn't been a top QB in a while. Yeah, Rashawn Slater signed a $114 million new contract recently, now out for the season. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it was finalized. Well, this is something the Giants have dealt with Thomas. They extended him, and he's, what was it, 16 of 34 games he's missed or something like that in the 2 years since. So this is why, to me, that's not an argument that you don't pay guys. It is an argument, though, that you need to find a way to keep throwing darts at positions even when you feel like you found your guy. I've said this before about the Giants, but it's something for team building that people need to remember in general. And that is, let's say you draft an Andrew Thomas and you say, oh, wow, we have our franchise left tackle. That doesn't mean you stop drafting tackles. It doesn't mean you don't address that part of your offense and your line and your roster. You keep taking swings and trying to reinforce, put a strength on a strength. You can never have enough reliability on your roster. Obviously, there's a salary cap. There's only so much you can spend, and every team's looking for more tackles, things like that. Yeah, sure. But just the point is, you have to make sure that there's no excuse. Nobody cares that the Chargers aren't going to have Rashawn Slater. Nobody cares if the Giants lose Andrew Thomas when they say at the end of the year we had all these injuries. Like, you just have to be ready for it. You have to be prepared. You have to prepare those guys, and you have to add the right personnel. Our first super chat of the night goes to none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Tuto Azori. Salute to Big Boss Pat and all diehard Giants fans in America. Greetings from our rugby club in Italy, and please forget about moron Neal. He's been a bad bust. Oh, ouch. Yeah. Yeah, listen, Evan is working and trying. He just like this would be really frustrating because at this point, this is him accepting, okay, tackle is not, exactly the place for me anymore. It's certainly not the way I'm going to stay a Giant, and becoming a guard is now my best chance at making a strong career in the NFL. He's accepted that. Now he's going for it. He's been working hard at it. Unfortunately, he's been on the ground a fair amount lately in camp, and now you're seeing an injury crop back up or something that he has to deal with on the side, and it's terrible timing. I hear what you're saying, Tuto. What you're essentially saying is stop with the charade. He's not going to win the job. Enough already. And I agree with that. I think, it's one of those things that you can see what the Giants want to happen, but what they want to happen and what clearly needs to happen for the good of the team, is obvious. John P says they don't really have a backup center, so GVR and Neal can absorb those backup interior spots. Well, GVR can slide over to center if he needs to. Neal cannot. They do have Austin Schlottman. He is a center. Runyon can also play there. So Schlottman is a guy. Also, Jake Kubas, they cross-train as well. So, if you thought about, would they ever actually just ever flat out cut Neal? Like I said, I think they still believe in him as a run blocker, and he's a former first-round pick of theirs. But he doesn't have the position flex of center. That's one thing he doesn't have that some other guys do. John also points out, I feel like Dart should be going against the threes if possible. Critical to keep his confidence and the fans high. I would like to see Winston go 20 minutes, Dart 10, and DeVito the last 30. See, why would you only like to see Dart go 10 minutes of, like, if you were to divvy it up like that? And why would you want DeVito to play so much football there? Just because, so I guess what you're saying is you're somebody who would rather Dart not play this year, and you want to completely slow play the development, essentially, is what you're saying. Right. Okay. If that's the way you're going about it, I see what you're saying. To me, I agree with what you're saying if they can't protect the kid. Like, if they can't put an offensive line in front of him that protects well, then I agree with, not throwing him to the wolves for sure, especially against the Bills starters. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Winston starts and goes for a fair amount of time there, but I don't personally see the value in meaningful reps for DeVito at this point. Other than maybe it helps him get his next job, or unless they are getting rid of Jameis and trading him because they want Dart to be the 2 and then DeVito sticks around. But other than that, I guess what you're saying is just, preserve all the other quarterbacks, and that's why you'd rather them not play as much. Let's see. If the Giants have to replace 2 O-linemen with backups, then who replaces the backups? Does this make the O-line even weaker? Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying is, like, Josh Azudu, Stone Forsythe, guys like that having to play a lot of reps in front of Jackson Dart is a little bit worrisome. Shane does not want to admit to another one of his draft busts. Yeah, no, I think a lot of GMs are like that, but I would agree, probably not. Christopher Lund says, what would contracts look like for Micah McFadden and Wan'Dale Robinson? I feel like Wan'Dale especially is a hard one to project. I mean, sip of coffee here. So what would contracts look like for them? Christopher, I got to be honest. I think that Wan'Dale Robinson still has to earn a new contract to me. I don't even I wouldn't even put a number and a second contract down on the table for Wan'Dale Robinson right now as we stand. Would you? Micah McFadden, um, I think that would be one where, really reliable guy, well-rounded, well-liked, some physical limitations, obviously, but a gamer, hard-nosed, a guy everybody wants to go into battle with, so to speak, in football. I don't think he, cost anything crazy. You think about the Giants going after Bobby Okereke in free agency and paying him a few years ago, and landing him from the Indianapolis Colts and like paying top dollar. I don't think, um, you know, like Micah McFadden is not a player, in my opinion, that would be poached in the same way elsewhere for big money. So I would think that, you'd get for a player like Micah, like you could get him at a reasonable number. I do believe that, you know, retaining a player like that be interesting to see where Bobby Okereke is at the end of the year, because there was a lot of rockiness and uncertainty with his status going into this year. And then he's been here, he's getting up there in age. Are they going to retain him? Is Bobby going to stick around? If he doesn't, yes, they like Muasau, but is it Muasau and McFadden? I think that's a position you're looking at drafting something meaningful at relatively soon for sure. I think you need more speed and athleticism there, like a DeMarvion Overshawn from Texas, who the Dallas Cowboys took. Like that guy is a complete monster. And, you did draft Abdul Carter, who has that position versatility. Could you continue to work him in? Would he get more comfortable off the ball at points of this? In which case that kind of changes your whole outlook on what you're doing at that spot. But yeah, I would zero in there on Wan'Dale. I think Wan'Dale still has a lot to prove. I think he can be an every down player, but hasn't yet proven to me that he can be an every down player on a good offense. So I'm eager to see if that's the case. Let's see. Christopher also wants to know about signing Christian Wilkins. What do I think about that? Dexter Lawrence may be able to keep him in line. I think signing Christian Wilkins, my understanding is that would be maybe a difficult price point for the Giants to reach, because Christian Wilkins, with the money being voided in Vegas, is going to be a guy who, when healthy, projects as a standout defensive tackle, like a really strong defensive tackle. And so if he gets once he gets free and that contract being voided as a free agent, he's not going to likely be a minimum signing, right? A team like the Giants would have to pay for a player like that. Any team that wins the sweepstakes, let's say for Christian Wilkins, is probably paying a significant amount of coin for him, like more so than the average veteran hanging around in late August as a free agent. Not to mention that, at least as of a few days ago, I was told like this guy's not ready to play football yet. There was the disagreement over whether he should have surgery done on his foot, and then a second surgery done on his foot, I think it was. And the Raiders weren't going to cut a player who was ready to play football, who they felt good about kind of supporting, right? There's the off-field issue, but on top of that, it's the injury, and on top of that, it's what would it cost. That the Giants are so invested in Dexter Lawrence and have so much money in that defensive front that and then they spent a lot at the quarterback position too, right? Or at least, good amount of right now roster spots, resources, things like that. So you look at the way that it shapes up and you say, the Giants are more likely only able to make targeted minimum additions and smart veteran ads that don't cost them a lot rather than big game hunting, because they paid Javon Holland, they paid Paulson Adebo in addition to all of that. I don't see it. Could you get a guy like Wilkins to accept a minimum deal because he just wants to be on the same team as his buddy Dexter? I guess you could try that card. I mean, stuff like that doesn't usually happen in professional sports. These guys are trying to get paid, and especially in Wilkins' case, he got, he's getting money taken away from him. He's being litigated against by his former team, having a contract ripped up for allegedly, violating the terms of it. So, hard to get a guy like that not thinking about making his money back. So I don't personally see it happening. Daboll and the players keep talking about fast start to the season. They better look like the Ravens or Chargers against the Bills. If they look like the Colts, the season will go straight downhill. A lot needs to look better than it's looked on the practice field. I'll tell you that. Tuto with another super chat. Thank you, Tuto. Pat, our POVs, let's see. Pat, our POVs, Diff, Dan, beat writers, mate, his natural position, his technique, his stance, his footwork, only at left guard college level. He ain't an O-line hybrid. I think so, Tuto. I think what you're saying there is you're explaining that Evan Neal is not an O-line hybrid, and you're saying he's a college level guard at best, I believe is what you're saying there. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate you. Let's see. Jim says, hey, Pat, was Tyreek Hill a freak fluke? How many other slot receivers live up to his stats? I asked because wide receiver was drafted in that mold, and he's a poor imitation. Oh, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Yeah, and you know what he was too, Jim? And it's easier. You think of Tyreek Hill. Yes, Tyreek Hill is a freak and a fluke and a guy that nobody is like, nobody can emulate, because nobody has the type of like road runner acceleration plus the play strength and hands that Tyreek does. And he's also, versatile enough and intelligent enough to run, certain concepts to be able to position himself. Like basically it's just moving him around, finding holes in the defense, right? If you can protect long enough, like he will get open. So yeah, I understand what you're saying about Wan'Dale being drafted in the mold of Tyreek Hill, but you have to think of it more like this. He was drafted more in the mold of like Cole Beasley that Brian Daboll had in Buffalo. And now Buffalo has Khalil Shakir, as their slot receiver, and that kind of gadgety slot return ability, maneuverability, versatility, right? All those things in an undersized but compact and reliable receiver. Like that's the mode that Wan'Dale Robinson is in Brian Daboll's mind. And that's part of the concern is, to me, Wan'Dale has plenty of skill sets. I mean, listen, the guy's a freak athlete, obviously. But in the NFL, the lack of size plus the fact that he doesn't have burner speed, like he's quick and he's got some fast feet, but he's not lightning fast. And so when you're playing at that size, running those routes underneath, having to do catch and run to break tackles, it's just difficult for a guy like him in this league to serve that role and that purpose. And so, I think, I don't think a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson is not getting, way faster between now and the start of the regular season. I think the hope, you think of that famous or infamous play in Germany when they drew up that misdirection and Wan'Dale was open across the field and Daniel didn't throw it for some reason. Hopefully, that there was remember the throw against Green Bay by DeVito downfield was it up the seam or up the right sideline to one? No, it was up the right sideline on like a slot fade, I think. Those are the types of routes. If they can call them for him and hit him on those, then I think you can build more of a Rolodex of you can create more of a threat from him down the field. And if you can, then you can open it back up underneath. But they really struggled to make those plays with him. There's been few and far between. Maybe Russell Wilson as the quarterback helps unlock that. But for right now, again, need to see it before I believe it. Joe doesn't even think Christian Wilkins is playing this year. Seen in a walking boot recently, 12 to 16 weeks if he needs another operation on his little toe. Yep. Yeah, I was just going through all the different reasons. But yeah, he's not ready to play football. Hirsch, great to see you. Jim says, I see Tiki Barber has been invited back into the Giants fold as commentator and is now in good graces. Any thoughts? Hey, yeah, I think he got himself back in good graces when he ripped Saquon Barkley last year. After ripping Saquon Barkley, or after critiquing Saquon Barkley's pass blocking, and then backing down when challenged on that, and then ripping him. It's interesting. These lines get blurred. These people who have these relationships with the organizations / work for the organizations, but also don't. Very tricky. Listen, I think the Giants they don't do enough with their former players. They never did prior to Joe Judge arriving. Joe Judge spent a lot of time in that outreach and, welcoming and wrapping the organization's arms back around these legends and former standout Giants and those players. And, now you're seeing it continue a little bit more under Brian Daboll, who seems to, recognize the value of that. And so, I think organizations, the Giants have, unfortunately, there have been over the years, there's been too much of these former players and legends not being around the team and not being around the building. And the Giants should have them around. They should be walking through the halls and available to the current players and to the team, and not just have their names on the wall, but have them there living, breathing in the flesh, imparting wisdom to, guys who are following in their footsteps. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But obviously interesting with the WFAN deal and Tiki welcome back into the fold, and you have him as part of the apparatus of the team and then also of the radio station that's supposedly critiquing and covering it. It all gets very dicey. Can be hard to be authentic in those types of critiques at times, depending on your role. I mean, the conflict of interest is right there in front of your face. It's not easy for anybody to navigate. GCN says, Pat, the Eagles look ready for a Super Bowl return. Bengals defense looks bad. Giants have no chance against the Eagles. You said it. Pat, WFAN re-signed with the Giants, and Barber is pre- and post-game reporter. Plus, he will hype Wilson and the team. He won't criticize Shane, Daboll, or Mara. That's potentially that could happen. Let's see. Yeah, Barber fits into the Shane spin machine. GCN says Barkley was too old on the downhill. Yes, Shane was right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but will that happen? Will he, does somebody in that position say those types of things, or do they actually criticize and stand up for whatever they believe the truth is, right? Like those are tough decisions, but when you're in that position, that's what you're signing up for. That's what you're getting paid to do, is give honest takeaways and feedback. So yeah, that is an interesting one. Especially interesting, like one thing that's gone under the radar and been kind of swept under the rug is that I know Michael Strahan has talked since about, the rivalries and hating these other teams, the rivals, but man, him waving that Eagles flag with Saquon in that feature before the Super Bowl on Fox, that was something else, man. The Giants have so much to come back from last season, and it starts with those 2 division games, but it starts even more with this Buffalo game. And my final priority, big picture priority, that I think the Giants need to get out of this game, and this is our big bet of the day, brought to you by MyBookie. mybookie.ag. That's where you're going to use that promo code Leonard. That's my last name, Leonard. And if you go to MyBookie, use that promo code Leonard, Leonard. That's going to get you welcome boosts once you first sign up as a first-time sign-up at MyBookie. But even better than that, MyBookie is going to be the best spot for you to bet NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, WWE is huge on MyBookie. It's really the best place, seriously, the best place to bet wrestling, UFC as well. And then the casino is fantastic. And there's just a lot of unique games. It's not just your standard straight, parlays and standard deals. You got the money maker, the money bag, partner picks, daily bet boost, like so much. If you follow them on Instagram at MyBookie, at Real MyBookie, I believe it is on Instagram, they just have so many offerings and so many deals that they're telling you about. And I'm grateful to MyBookie's support. And so my big bet of the day is that the Giants are going to come away with this game shaking their heads about the amount of penalties they've committed. And I think that needs to be a priority and a focus. And coming out of this game, the Giants really need to, even if it's all the backups, I think they really need to set a tone of discipline and of getting better and improving, because in the last, let's say 3 to 4 practices, they've had one practice where they had 8 penalties. And then the other day they had 7. Now, a lot of them are committed by the third stringers. Then there's some by the second stringers, some by the first. But it's too many. It's too many. Daboll made that clear to the team yesterday. On Wednesday, he continues to urge to these guys, stressing the urgency of like, this is not acceptable, but it can't just be all talk. It has to be implemented. There have to be consequences. They do take guys out of drills and out of reps for jumping and for creating these penalties, especially the pre-snap penalties, which is something the Giants really struggled with last year as well. And, just on Wednesday, Evan Neal got kicked out of a drill after false starting on the first snap, didn't play the rest of the drive. Darius Alexander jumped off sides, got kicked out of a drill. This is all 11-on-11 stuff. So, that's I think a real key. Stone Forsythe's a guy who struggled to stay still prior to the snap, out at tackle. And again, the discipline, it's you want it to be a clean offensive operation, but it's not just that. It's also, we don't want to put the quarterbacks behind the sticks and take the run game out of their hands. And now it's obvious passing situations, and now the evaluation gets skewed a little bit, and the quarterbacks are on their heels because it's always second and third and long. So you really need to try to stay disciplined just to give everybody on your field the best chance to play their game and show you what they can do and not compromise it before it starts. Let's see. All right. All right. Thank you all for being here. This has been yet another awesome chat. Let's see. All right. Michael says, hey guys, if Giants are at Buffalo, what channel is the Saturday game on? Because I have yet to see which one on my TV guide. Didn't look like ESPN, and neither NBC or CBS is covering it. I do know that NBC, WNBC, so like NBC New York, is carrying it at 1:00 on Saturday. They announced that the other day, actually. With preseason football around the corner, Giants are excited to announce an extended partnership agreement with NBC New York, or WNBC, and Telemundo. Giants and NBC4 New York, WNBC, will bring 2 preseason games to tri-state viewers. That includes the Giants at Bills at Highmark Stadium, 1:00 Saturday, August 9th, and Giants versus Jets at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, Saturday, August 16th, 7 p.m. So That's what the Giants said. Barb says they're on NFL Network as well. Maybe they'll be on NBC here in the New York area and then NFL Network elsewhere, possibly. Because on this release, it says this game against the Bills is on NBC only. I believe that would apply to the tri-state area. BT and Sal and the fan are the only ones who criticize the Giants, says Joe. No Met says that was inexcusable from Strahan. People have missteps. Jim says, I think Strahan waving the flag was a shot against Mara personally. It was definitely a shot at how the Giants were running things in general. Like it was like it was like a wake up. I mean, I know that for a fact it was. Kyler says Daboll was giving you a little attitude and lip today. He didn't like you asking about Dart and the new quarterbacks. Yeah, that's right, Kyler. You heard that? Well, yeah, it got to the point where he wasn't even listening to my question because he was too busy chirping me, you know? What did I say to him? I was like, yeah, no, you don't know what I asked you because you're too busy making fun of me, you know? Yeah, no, he got combative. Well, it was funny. Like I couched my question about Dart and I said, listen, I know he's had some up days, some down days, some learning days, whatever. And I just said, what do you think accounts for him holding the ball a lot when snaps aren't going his way? Because he really does hold the ball too long. When he has snaps that he clearly isn't, that he needs to learn from, it does seem like he's not getting the ball out quickly enough. And I'm not talking about the ones he improvises on. I'm talking about downs where it just looks like it's not coming out when it should. And Daboll was, contentious about that point and basically said, he challenged me to give him examples. I'm like, what do you mean? Like it happens every day. And he says, essentially that big plays, that's how you create big plays. You create big plays by improvising, by using those instincts, and he doesn't want to take that away from him. That's right. That's fine. I get it. But just a factor to consider. You're absolutely right, though, Kyler. Daboll in full defense mode. I mean, the Bills literally, and the Bills are one of, 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl this year or something. They are playing everybody essentially but Josh Allen in this game at around a quarter or so. And they announced that. Like they put a story up about it on their website. I mean, and then Daboll won't give an inch. The only thing he'll admit is that his rookie quarterback is going to play in the game. I mean, it's just silly. JFed thinks there are other FAN hosts that criticize the Giants. It's not just BT and Sal. Joe says maybe the morning show and Tiki show at Giants camp because they are part of the spin machine and BT and Sal wouldn't go along. They go nuts on all teams, whether they are fans or not. Okay. So I'm a fan saying that the game's on NFL Network at 1:00. It's got to be a geographical where it's like NBC in New York and NFL Network elsewhere. All right, GCN just threw a bunch of info here in the chat, Michael. Jim says I really meant that he was sending a message to Shane, but Mara had to sign off on it, right? Yeah, to Shane. Yeah, well, Mara let it happen, right? I mean, it's like you don't want him to meddle, but then feels like the time when he knows the right thing to do and he doesn't meddle, right? So, in Mara's point of view, there, it's like, oh, I can do no right. Yeah, Mara would have to sign off, but he specifically told Joe that it should not happen. Yeah, he made clear what he wanted or what he didn't want to happen, right? And then, it was really, that was a sign from Strahan about like this regime and the Giants in general as an organization not doing things the right way and needing to shape up or ship out. That is what that was. So that was a direct shot at the Giants. There's no doubt about it. No Met says, I get it, but the Giants don't want to be Bills light. The goal is to be better than the Bills. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, also, like, a game like this, like it's dangerous to your point. It's great to talk about Josh Allen and Brian Daboll, and now Jackson Dart is here and those kind of things. But Jackson Dart, comparing him to Josh Allen, I think would be unfair. I believe that he's his own quarterback. And yes, you want to see elements of that toughness, that moxie, the mobility, the playmaking, all those things, right? You want to see all of that. You believe Jackson has that, but he's his own quarterback. Evaluate him as such. And that's, really the most exciting thing about this game, getting to see him and Abdul Carter on the field for the first time. And, hopefully starting to validate early why the Giants took them. And really, in Jackson Dart's case, maybe even giving the coaches and the staff reason to think that he deserves more of a look and that maybe this should be a competition. But like I say, it's not a quarterback competition at the moment. If anyone has made you think that it should be, it's Jameis for now. Another thing to consider about Jameis is if he plays a lot in these preseason games and Russ is just sitting out, is this Jameis sharpening his edge for the season, or is this the Giants, putting him out there for an audition and looking to get something for him after strong, after a strong preseason, right? Wow, look at the Eagles, 34-17. Man, oh man. I know the Bengals offense looked good early on when the starters were on the field. So Daniel Jones went 10 of 21 for 144 yards. Riley Leonard, 12 of 24 for 92 yards with an interception. Riley Leonard, 4 carries, 34 yards. So he's scampering that Notre Dame guy. Notre Dame / Duke. Looks like Tyler Warren has 3 for 40. Interesting. And Keaton Mitchell back for the Ravens, 68 yards on the ground. Let's see what the Eagles and the Bengals are up to here. Tanner McKee for the Eagles, 20 of 25, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns. Powell and McKee both with rushing touchdowns. A.J. Dillon played a little bit. Interesting. And then Joe Burrow, 9 of 10, 123, 2 touchdowns. And, they made some plays I saw against both Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo in that cornerback battle. Joe says ESPN, he doesn't think that Daboll likes journalists. He said they try to stir the pot, said Dart was not his pick, that Dart was a collaborative pick. Okay. Hooks, what's up? Jared, great to see you. He says, what's up, Pat and chat? Popping in to say hello. Can't wait to see the guys on the field in a couple of days. Yeah, Jared, no, great to see you here. We actually kicked off with hooks right off the bat. Our hook of the episode was our first priority for the Giants in this game against the Bills needs to be to keep Dart healthy, and not just healthy, but to protect him well enough to give him a chance to show you what he can do. Because if they are, in fact, not playing a lot of the starters, which it looks like, and if they're playing some of these depth, second / third / fourth string linemen, it's just a little bit worrisome what Dart may have to work with up front. And so that's something that you want to make sure is that you can operate cleanly enough as an offense and as a team, especially with Dart going in and getting his first look at football. But yeah, grateful to Jared, to Hooks, Rubs, and Spices for supporting us, sponsoring us here. And like I said, whether it's smoke and sweetness or one of the other great flavors, and then also all the swag he has on the website, can't get enough of Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Really grateful to, that we're collaborating to help each other grow and hopefully bring a great product to fellow Giants fans, because this guy's a diehard. He's basically a day oneer here in Talking Ball with Pat Leonard, and huge contributor to the show. And also, just like everybody here, a grinder, somebody who is putting his blood, sweat, and tears into this company. Originally from Houston, got that Texas flavor about the product. Smoke and Sweetness is actually an award winner. So it's Hooks Rub, at Hooks Rub. Hooksrub.com is the website. And use that promo code Talking Ball. You can see it on the ticker on our screen for a 15% discount on your order. Go and check it out. Please support Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. That's the best way to support our channel, is to support our sponsors. Hook says, sorry I couldn't join the last couple of shows. Been traveling for my wife's birthday. Just got back in town. All good, Hooks. All good. Appreciate you. Hopefully they put all of our quarterbacks behind a solid enough line this weekend. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And you want to see them not commit penalties and block well and allow the offense to function. Let's see. Hook says, also for the record, I would love to do a giveaway during some shows. I'll hit you up on that, Pat. Got to sprinkle that flavor on the G-Men fans. Ooh, I love that idea, Jared. Maybe we'll kick that off next week. We have Jets and Giants joint practices next week. And so we have that plus the Giants-Jets game. That'll be a lot of fun. So maybe we can get together, do a Hooks Rub giveaway in relation to that. Socrates is excited about that, no doubt about it. I'm in. Let's see. GCN actually says it would be great to be the Bills light. They would be a 500 team. They would have a team to build on. Yeah, that is something to remember, is the Giants are really coming from the bottom at the moment to try to build this from the ground up. Brand new flavor in your ear. That's right. That is right. Yeah, so I really like that idea. Jared. A giveaway soon for Hooks. Barb says, so we really don't know if Winston or Dart is starting the game. No, we don't. Literally, Daboll thinks this competitive advantage stuff is real. It's insane. It is focused on the wrong thing. But no, I think it's going to be Winston. Like, I don't think they've been rolling out Jackson Dart, Barb, against the twos all camp. So you're not going to just throw him out there against the Bills ones on defense to start the game. Like, you're not going to do that. You're going to put the veteran Jameis, who has been there, done that, in against them, and then go from there, I think, with Dart after that. This is, I think, partially why they've put Jameis Winston ahead of Dart on the unofficial depth chart for this game, because it would have been weird to put Dart as the 2 and Winston the 3 and then start Winston in this game in order to keep Dart away from the ones, right? You see what I mean? So in practice, throughout all of open practice, all the fans there could see it throughout practice, it's always Wilson, Dart, Winston, DeVito. Wilson, Dart, Winston, DeVito. That's the order typically of the reps. So I believe it is definitely Winston based on who Buffalo is playing and the fact that it just, if they had had Dart going up against the Giants' first defense in a significant amount of time in practice, then I would think so, but not in this case. Drew Lock just threw a deep interception in the Raiders' end. Interesting. That makes sense. Winston start, says Barb. Socrates says, as long as Jameis helps us eat some W's, I'm good with it. Exactly. Yeah. Listen, Jameis is fun. And if the Giants want explosive plays, he's the guy. Like, I'm telling you. Yeah, I'm telling you. I know he's volatile, but Nomad says Bills light doesn't get you a Super Bowl. Common and contrary to popular belief, there's a standard in Giants country, an expectation, Super Bowls. Yeah, no, for sure. No, I think you guys are both right. Yeah, you don't want to settle. The Giants have settled in recent years, and you don't want to just settle for, hey, let's be 500, because certainly that's not a successful year. But, compared to 3-14, winning 8 or 9 games would certainly go a long ways to at least making a slightly better argument that somebody in this building is starting to get the hang of what they're doing, right? So there's that. But no, this has been a fantastic chat. You guys are always awesome. I'm excited for real football. I hope you are too. Like I said, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, hooksrub.com/talkandball is the code there. Whether you're in the Giants lot, whether you're in the Bills lot this weekend, like Joey B is going to be, whether you are home gating, you might be like me, staying home from Buffalo. So I may just be hanging out myself, grill out in the backyard, throw some Hooks, Rubs, and Spices on a steak, grill out, kind of watch it on my couch. By the way, I should have led with this. We will be live on Saturday immediately after the game. I won't be at the stadium, but we will be live immediately after the Giants-Bills game to dissect everything that we've seen from the team. Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston, Abdul Carter, Darius Alexander, and much more. So stay tuned for the post-game live chat. like I said, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Talking Ball for 15% off. Salaretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey, luxury menswear and tailoring. Go to Salaretta's, tell them that Pat sent you to look your best. Also brought to you by MyBookie, of course, the only sports book that you can play all the best games, a lot of unique ones you're not going to find anywhere else. Bet NFL, follow Pat's picks all season long, as well as the Money Bag, partner picks, daily boost, WWE, UFC, and great games all season long, all year long. Go to mybookie.ag and use that code on the bottom of your screen, Leonard, Leonard. And Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, Talking Ball 25 on the subscribe and save option. Boom Chaga fuels your body with nature's best. Feel the difference today at boomchaga.com. Whether it's with the extract in your coffee, tea, or water, has no taste and carries a bunch of different benefits for you health-wise, or one of the cold teas, whether it's the Midday Boost, the Rise and Shine, or the Sweet Dreams. It's boomchaga.com. Thank you to all of our sponsors. To wrap us up, Hooks said, oh, wait, here we go. Joe says, Pat, your first question for Daboll after the Buffalo game has to be about the offense has not looked good in practice. They also didn't look good in Buffalo. How is this season going to be better? We could be there. Jameis might make it look a little bit better, though. Who knows? Hook says, I would love to be competitive again in the playoffs and a Super Bowl contender. That's where we need to get back to. It's just been too long just settling, but it takes time to grow back into that beast. Barb says, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, Barb, for being here. Hooks says, the Mad Cow seasoning is what we need to use on the steak. All right. Good advice, Hooks. Appreciate that. Let's see. Kenneth says, Pat, if you had to name a surprise starter on each side of the ball by week 1 in the lineup, who, what position, and why? Well, I guess we all know the names on offense. The surprise potential starter could be James Hudson at left tackle if Andrew Thomas isn't ready. I know that's not what you want to hear, but either that or, let's say if Gabe Davis isn't on the team yet, but he signed late, I guess otherwise, like, a healthy Scattaboo maybe, but at this point it's Tyrone Tracy, right? Scattaboo's hurt. He's on the side. He's not practicing. On the defensive side, I would say Darius Alexander, the rookie, he's not practicing as a starter. He has a ways to go. I think they're trying to get him there. So what will he earn versus what they hope he'll have? We'll see if he earns that. But, definitely, I think one bummer, Kenneth, is that there aren't enough challenges to some of these players who you would like to be challenged and maybe overtaken for their jobs. Like we already hit on the cornerback 2 and right guard positions, which are supposed to be position battles, but it feels like the same guys are just going to be ending up there. I don't think you consider Abdul Carter a surprise starter, but maybe he'll start and be used in a even more exciting and variable way than you expected. That could be another one. Socrates says 9, 8, or 7 wins would mean we're getting better. What is the status on Scattaboo? To me, no exact update on him. He jogged on the side alongside Slayton today, but didn't do a lot. Guys moving very slowly. No one has used this word to me, but I would say he's out indefinitely. And what I mean by that is he's not coming back in a few days and there's no timetable on it. So that could be a week. It could be 2 weeks. It could be week 1. I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think based on how much they want him a part of the roster and how excited they are about him, I think that they're going to try to be as safe as they can and get him healthy to week 1 if they can, similar to maybe how they're slow playing the Andrew Thomas stuff. But, he's really not doing anything right now, but they're keeping that close to the vest. We'll know a little bit more in another, 2.5 weeks. Joe says Giants will be 3-14 at best. To be a Super Bowl contender, they need to clean house, bring in a good coach and GM. Joe, I agree with you on the assessment there, but I know not everyone does. Like Hooks, Jared disagrees. He says, Joe, come on, man. We don't have Daniel Jones as our quarterback anymore. We'll be better than 3-14. See, I'm on Joe's side of it, Hooks, to be honest, of like, show me, Russ, how much better you are before I say that. You're welcome, Ken. No, that was a good question. Barbara says, I hope Dart looks decent Sunday. Me too. Me too. I do. I hope that he looks good. I said this earlier, but I'll say this again, Barbara. I think that Jackson Dart, when you talk to people about Jackson, what they've said throughout is how much of a gamer he is. And that does not that he doesn't do well in practices or whatever, but like whether he's up and down or consistent or struggling in practice, he's just a guy who like goes out there, gets it done, puts it on the line. He's competitive. When the juices start flowing and the stakes are higher and the lights are on, like he shows up. He's that kind of guy. He's got moxie to him. So I think that is the hope and the belief in what Dart is going to do is kind of elevate a little bit here. I think that's what you need to see and want to see if you're a Giants fan and if you're the Giants in general. Let's see. Joe doesn't think that Scadaboo will be able to take the punishment that he would have to take being a lead back or a heavily used back. Yeah, again, I think he might be able to. I think it's just a question of show me, right? There's a lot about this Giants team that if they're excited about or they think they can rely on, it's like, hey, it needs to be done first. We need to see it, right? So that would be one of them. Joe thinks Wilson is worse than Jones. Barbara says Barkley is terrible in short yardage. The Eagles don't even use him there. Not terrible, but I know what you're saying. He's more of a home run hitter, Barbara, but no, very, very strong runner. And when he stutter steps in the backfield, he doesn't get upfield. He sometimes would not gain those yards. But in Philadelphia, now that he's confident he can and he doesn't stutter as much, he gets them, Barbara says, good point, Pat. It's better to be good in the actual games. Yeah, and also, Barbara, like this goes back to, any sport, right? Whether you're a baseball fan, hockey fan, basketball fan, football fan, whatever, there's always those players that sometimes they're just guys who show up when the lights come on, or they're playoff players who in the regular season are up and down, or they kind of hover in the background. And then when the playoffs start, it's, suddenly they come out of nowhere and they're one of your best players. And, if a guy is going to be consistently elevating at critical moments, hey man, you'll take it. So maybe that's what Jackson is, and maybe that's what he validates. Kenneth says the schedule is brutal, especially the first 5 games for a lower tier team trying to rebuild. Yeah, and that's why, Kenneth, the Giants right now have to look at it as just an opportunity, even though it's tough. The opportunity is Washington, Dallas, both NFC East games being games that, like, yes, they never beat this Cowboys team. Obviously, they never beat Dak. They are now clearly not as good of a team as this Washington team, especially at the quarterback position. So that's a concern. Not that they're unbeatable, but, it's not the same Washington team they always go and get 1 or 2 out of most years. And so, yeah, that's tough, but you're going to need to beat good teams to be a good team. And because they're division games early, you have the opportunity. I mean, they went winless in the division last year. So if you can just get a division win in one of those first 2 games as a 3-14 team, you can sell going into that Chiefs game some hope, some belief. You can sell to the team as Brian Daboll, that things might be still headed in the right direction, that you're building something different. Again, you just have to take it week to week there. But, getting a division win, you couldn't underestimate how critical that would be. No, it's not going to be easy, but, at least it's the Cowboys and Washington and not the Eagles as one of them, because the Eagles are the best team of all of them, or at least most talented, I should say. And then the other thing I've said before, I don't know if this is going to be advantage or not. I mean, the Giants tend to lay eggs in Dallas and in Arlington, But playing on the road in week 1 at Washington, where the Giants fans tend to travel well and show up well, I feel like playing there instead of playing at MetLife, like if they play week 1 MetLife and things go wrong in the first quarter, could be the crowd, kind of groaning early and here we go again. And, listen, they've laid eggs the last 2 years early at home. And so I wonder if starting on the road, I'm not saying it's an advantage because certainly Washington could be thrilled that they're at home. And, that's you'd rather open at home than away and all that. But I think for the Giants, a team with their back against the wall, nothing to lose, a lot to prove. Sometimes you do that, like, us against the world thing, going on the road can work for you. So I don't hate that. And that's kind of that's another thing probably that they should try to get going this week in Buffalo, because it's their only road game of the preseason is like us against the world, right? No Met says the schedule is not tough until the games are played. Let's see. No excuses for this team. Yeah, no excuses. As I mentioned earlier, the interviews I did today with JP, or the other day, I did them yesterday. So I did them on the 6th, 5th and 6th with JP Finley, covers the Commanders, and Calvin Watkins, who covers the Cowboys. They downloaded completely on what the Cowboys and Commanders look like now, what they might look like when the Giants face them in September in weeks 1 and 2. I think you'll really like those pre-scout episodes. So check them out on my YouTube channel, PL on NFL. I think you'll love it. But I also did ask JP about how he thinks the crowd will break down in week 1, because it does tend to, at least, especially this section right behind the Giants bench, tends to fill up with a lot of blue jerseys. Like if you were a Commanders fan, you would be upset with how much blue is usually in that stadium. So we did talk about bat around, like what to expect with that, because it would be interesting to see. GCN says Dart has to look good and build this season. He is the only way Daboll and Shane save their jobs. Like I said, I'm very interested to see how Shador does here. GCN says Barkley's great at everything. Kenneth says he can get a dirty yard when he wants it and goes nose down. Barbara says, I see Notre Dame is 5 in the coaches poll. I'm happy about that. Go Irish, Barbara. Go Irish. JFed says he'll take the points and the Giants in week 1. That's a great high note to end on, JFed. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already on your way out. Those likes help us while we're live. Thank you so much to Tuto for setting the example with the super chats. Thank you to everybody for their questions and for being here tonight, always. Please join me after Giants Bills. Immediately after Giants Bills, I will send the link out on all my social media feeds, but we will be live here on YouTube to break down Giants Bills right after the game. That will be Saturday. Let's see, I don't know, probably in that 4 o'clock hour, right, that early 4 o'clock hour on Saturday. We will go live. We will talk about what we just saw in the game. We will talk about unpacking what we've seen and looking ahead to the Jets joint practices. So Talking Ball post-game live coming on Saturday after Giants Bills. Remember to support our sponsors, MyBookie, Hooks, Boom, and Salaretta. Thank you so much for being here. See you guys next time on Talking Ball live with Pat Leonard. Take care.